Welcome to Heirloom Conversations. Today I have with me Dr. Neela Sethi Young, and she is a mom, a entrepreneur, and a doctor. And she's somehow managed to pull together medicine, business, and innovation. Welcome, Dr. Neela.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for being here. As I was preparing for today and reading about all that you've accomplished, you're managing a lot. You're raising a family, you're taking care of children as a doctor, and you've somehow managed to work fashion into this life of yours, which I absolutely love. But I'd really like to dig into the woman behind all that you've done today. And really want to know where it all started for you. What was your childhood like?
Absolutely. So I grew up, I am a first generation Indian American. My parents were both born and raised in India. And my mother came here at a very young age. She married my father at just 20 years old and moved to a new country. And she moved to America in the time of the like kind of raging 70s. It was Studio 54. It was like lashes and blue eyeshadow and platform shoes and leopard minis. And, she wasn't raised that way. Where she came from, women didn't really have a voice that way. They weren't allowed to self express with fashion. And she just kind of fell right into it. And she was just sort of a fashionista from the second that she stepped foot into this country. And she was really my muse my entire life for just seeing how fashion can be used as a way of self expression, as artistic expression, creative energy. And I think I was just sort of born with that of this is just part of how you define yourself. And it's not about luxury and it's not about name brand and it's not about logo. It's about how you define yourself and looking in the mirror and being confident. And so if I've always really loved fashion. I was the kid that saved up the money for Vogue magazine back in the day. Um, I would wait for, runway fashion to come out in Europe, and I would try my best on my very small budget to recreate fashion looks. And that was really kind of how it all started to really have fashion be in the forefront of my mind, but kind of cross section my love for medicine and my love for fashion in one space.
I love that. So your mom was really a good role model for you and demonstrated how she incorporated fashion into her life. It sounds like that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
so you were the one saving money, buying the magazines, recreating fashion. What else stands out from you for you from your childhood that kind of led you to where you are today?
I think the idea of women supporting women, and I think that, the idea that there's room at the table, and I've really, tried to embody the idea of like, you can sit with us. And, being in business and being in medicine, that's not always the case. And I think that there are a lot of women that don't feel that way and don't want to support other women. And the higher they climb, sort of, the less they feel kind of called to, support other people around them. And I wasn't raised that way. And, being of Indian descent, it's very tribal how we feel and what our culture is. And we have an open door policy, and we were raised where it was like, invite your friends for dinner, have them here. And there was this idea of like, how can we love and support one another? And so I really pride myself now on seeing and helping other people rise, and the idea of like we rise by lifting others. And I think that's very true. And I think that's a huge part of just my success today is, opening that discussion and, helping healthcare professionals that are in training or medical students or people who are questioning themselves say, you've got this, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. We all have negative thoughts. We all have inner voices that lie to us. And how can we turn the volume down on that and turn the volume up of the you can do it and you're welcome here?
Yeah, I love that. As coming from a background in the legal field, there's much of the same, right? And
Mhm.
making
Yeah.
sure that we can make room for everyone at the table, as you say, is so important. Can you think back of when it occurred to you that that was something that was important to you, that you would need to make sure that you incorporated into your life and your mission?
Well, I was actually an English major when I started at UCLA for undergrad, and my mother was a kindergarten teacher, and I was dead set on being a kindergarten teacher because she was my mentor and my twin flame. And I actually did a camp for kids with cancer. It still exists and it's an amazing camp for everyone out there, but it's Camp Ronald McDonald. And I volunteered at the camp just to be with kids and just, for fun. And there was a pediatrician there that was the camp doctor. And I kept asking her questions. Well, how did they get diagnosed? And what does this mean? And what is their, what's the life expectancy? And are they going to recover? And at the end of that week, she said to me, "Hey, have you ever thought about going into pediatrics? I think you would be excellent. You have a biologically, based mind and you love kids. And I just feel like it would be something that you should consider." And I had never really been pushed in that way, of just like pushing further and to think of myself in a different way. And it was like, well, I'm an English major. I've already set my life path. And it was like, no, I was 19 years old. You don't set your path at 19. You don't set your path at 30. You don't set your path at 45. And I really just sort of pivoted and changed my class, load and, hopped into the pre-med circle. And it was really that conversation with her that sort of changed me. And I think having good female mentors and strong female people around you that are like, you can do this and think of things from a different place and view yourself differently makes all the difference.
Yes, and I can, just from hearing your story so far, understand how you've had two major important female role models in your life. So your mom and this other doctor, it's amazing how even a single conversation, I know it was much more with your mom, but even a single conversation with someone and that kindness and perception of what someone's capable of doing it can really change someone's life. So that's
I have a 16-year-old daughter and I try to remind her that like the person that's having a bad day, you just saying like, "How are you?" or "I'm noticing," or "You can sit with us," like we talked about, or, just offering empathy first and compassion first can make all the difference in someone's life. And even though it sounds so simple, it really is so impactful.
Yes, definitely. And it sounds like that is a core value for you, kindness and leadership. It seems like were instilled in you from your mom and you're passing on to your daughter, which is just amazing.
Thank you.
Are there any other values that you think that you really were ingrained with in your childhood that you bring with you into your life in medicine and business?
I think being of immigrant descent teaches you a tenacity um that isn't otherwise assumed. We didn't grow up early on with everything. And my parents didn't come from money, nor did they have a lot of money when they were here. And they were able to be successful and kind of live the American dream, but it really was from hard work. They didn't have a trust fund. They were making money here and sending it back to India for their family. And so there was just this idea of like hard work pays off and being tenacious and really burying your head in the sand and getting the work done pays off. And it's just something that I've even pushed through now. Busy clinics, busy ER shifts. Um, Not that I work in the ER, but having multiple kids go to the ER and taking call and rounding and in the midst of the kids' activities, as we all know, and packing lunches and still trying to have a social calendar and trying to be a good wife. The idea of like just pushing through and to continue to go forward really got me through my medical school training. And I think really is just part of who I am of like, you get knocked down and you just get back up and it's hard and you have to kind of brush yourself off and you have to give yourself that, that self-love, but that at every point you're going to learn from the experience, you're going to grow from the experience and you're going to be better as a human for it. And so that's something that I was really instilled with at a very young age.
That's amazing. And it's such a good mentality to maintain, and sometimes can be very difficult depending on the circumstances you're in. But you've seemed to manage, and I can't imagine it was always easy, especially with, you have that mindset and you're able to do it. Was there ever a time where you thought, I'm not going to get through med school. I can't do this.
Yes, yes. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a sugarcoater. I have the vision board item of like doing a TED talk for healthcare professionals about that exact topic. That, you are gonna doubt yourself and you're not gonna always make the perfect diagnosis and you're not gonna know what the patient has on day one. and you have to do investigative reporting, and sometimes you're going to get it wrong. And, you're going to have to pivot and change, and you're going to have to rework it. And there's times that you're going to feel like you're not enough because you're sleep deprived and your storyline from your past comes back. Or, sometimes one person not believing in you or telling you something negative resonates when you're at your darkest and your deepest. And it's funny how you can remember these negative things that have happened to you when you're in a dark space. You can't remember all the great, amazing things and things that you've done that have changed the world, but you tend to remember the negative. And, um, but you just keep pushing through. And, I feel I'm a big believer in that the universe has my back. I do believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I think every really negative, horrible sort of moment in medicine has been paired with something really beautiful. It's like for every time that had self-doubt in my medical decision making or connecting with patients, the very next week or month, there would be an equally beautiful reaction from a patient, or a really hard diagnosis that was made, or a really soulful connection that just sort of keeps me back on track. And I've been doing this 20 years and I will still say that's true. It's like I'll have somebody that's upset with me for some reason, and because I couldn't perform for them in the way they wanted. And, the very next day or a few days later, it'll be someone sending me a letter saying, hey, you made this diagnosis for my daughter or my son, and it was really impactful. So it's like sort of yin and yang.
Right. That's a great message too for medical students, really anyone working through something, but medical students in particular, when you think about your own experience and you're able to relate and sort of push aside those fears that everyone has in their profession, especially in the early on days, right, where you're second guessing yourself. And it's a really good message. At what point though did you go from I am a pediatrician and I just think that we can do our fashion, our everyday fashion better than than what we have today.
We can do better. That's a big joke at JAANUU, my baby company. That's, I always say, my baby dream turned big. That like we can do better was a big motivating sort of mantra for us. And the first 2 years of medical school, you're in the classroom, and then the third and fourth year, um, you're on rotations and clinicals where you go to the hospital. And the very first week of that was my ear, nose, and throat rotation, and they handed me a set of scrubs from a vending machine. And I, very naively looked at, my third year resident and said, I think these are for men. And she sort of laughed and said, no, there were no, back in the day, there were no men and women, really. It was really all just sort of unisex. And something about that just bothered me from the very second that I was handed those scrubs. And, I put them on, and I immediately felt drab and a little sad, um and itchy and cold, and it felt a little bit jail cell like. And I thought, this isn't fair. Like, we're expected to, at that point I had done 6 years of studying to get to this moment, and then to be sort of have my light dim, and to have us sort of be pushed to heal people and to be our best self, and then to look and feel so sort of down and drab and kind of miniony. I was just like, we can do better. And it started out as a female empowerment sort of workshop for me, of just like, how many times do women have to like wear men's clothing in this way? And it was obviously a metaphor, but how many times do we not get what we deserve? And how many times are we going to be like made to feel small? And that's how JAANUU sort of began, was with, women's scrubs. And I so very proudly, can say that we've now moved to men's scrubs with the same ideology, because men deserve the same. But at that moment, I thought, I'm not gonna do this. I did go to the hospital board and ask if I was able to make my own scrubs. And they said, obviously, I couldn't wear them in the operating room because of sterile field, but that when I wasn't in the operating room, I could. And I had a best friend who's still a best friend, who's a seamstress, who made me scrubs. And it was the season of Sex in the City and Carrie Bradshaw and all the things I loved. And I had a big monogrammed N in the front and a big monogrammed S in the back. And I just thought that they were the coolest things that ever existed. And it it sort of started a, where'd you get those? What are those? You know, and that was when the sort of the light bulb went off of like, there's something here that's really beautiful. And I think there's a need. And so how can I explore this further?
That's great. I love that story. And the next steps that you took are pretty amazing. I was reading a little bit about how your company moved forward, and you went from, okay, I'll have a seamstress make some scrubs that are more fashionable for me to how can I make something we can all wear that will be sterile, that I can wear in the operating room. Tell me about that. What kind of process did you go through to make sure you could find the right material and make sure everything is, sort of on the up and up for a doctor's operating room?
I think it was a lot of trial and error, to be completely frank. I mean, that was where the grind and the tenacity really came into play. I mean, we had to shop fabric and we had to make sure that they were wrinkle resistant. Um, that was the big start of it, is just finding fabrics that were soft on the body and that also wouldn't wrinkle, because nobody's going to iron their scrubs. Let's just be completely honest. It's not going to happen in the morning. We're already at the hospital at 5 a.m., waking up sometimes at 4. So that was the big thing of just having that, like, that sort of um the like soft to touch, but also the durability and also the wrinkle resistance. And that proved to be and stain resistance. And that proved to be a very difficult task. Once we finally got there, we were able to make them have an antimicrobial finish, just to kind of give that added sort of protection for healthcare professionals, feeling like it was like something that made them feel good and look good and do good, but also would protect them. So I will say it was a lot of trial and error. I think that my sort of background in and my love for fashion really helped. You know, I could feel fabrics right away and be like, nope, too thin, nope, too thick, nope, too stretchy, nope, this isn't gonna sort of hold. This is one of our tops. And it goes the distance, and it kind of is that cross section of sort of fashion and function. And it was really important for me to have our scrubs be able to go to all different places in the hospital kind of seamlessly. And then we sort of pushed the envelope and said, well, could we design things that could actually take people outside the hospital as well? And if you were meeting your girlfriend for happy hour, or you were going to meet your husband for dinner, that you wouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, she's in scrubs, that you were like, oh, she looks put together, and that she could still kind of meet someone outside of the hospital and not have to go home. Because that traditionally wasn't true. Like, all of us in medical school and residency, we had our scrubs and it was like, well, we can't go out. We look crazy. And I I feel like I'm proud of that um, part of my story, that we were able to really do that. And I see women out and about now in my scrubs, having a glass of wine with a girlfriend, and you know, it brings like almost tears to my eyes, and like I get emotional, because I'm like, this is what we set out to do, and we actually did it, and are continue to do it.
Right. It must feel amazing to know that you've accomplished that and to see your work out there in the world.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Real life.
Yeah.
It's like going on a safari and seeing the animals for real in the wild, and you're like,
Right.
wow, my gosh, this really happens. It's true.
Yeah. And JAANUU, the name, that has special meaning to you, right?
Yeah, so my mother used to call us her little Janus, and John in Hindi means life. And so, we were her life. And so she would call us her little Janus. And when we started the company, we thought, should we go for a traditional name? And kind of like this story today of really talking about my childhood and who I am, and being a child of two immigrants. I just really wanted to make sure that people knew that that was a huge part of who I am. And being an Indian American is something that is so important. And I just wanted to have that be just front and center, and in a way that just helped sort of people see who I was and who I am at my baseline, and to never forget that.
Right. That is that is great. It's a nod, right? A nod to your mom and your heritage and your childhood. And I just love that. I mean, I think that is we could call that an heirloom, right? And the tie into your history into your business is something to be proud of. And you partnered with your brother on this, is that right?
Yeah, so my brother and I co-founded the company, and so that's why we always say like JAANUU at our core is a family business. I mean, we started this business out of our kitchens and in the back of, in the back of cars and, going to doctors' offices and, giving our cards and asking them to give us a shot. And so it was the most sort of homegrown um, sort of project. Like we had our best friends model for us. We did our first campaign at our aunt and uncle's house. Like we didn't have the ability to, we didn't have the finances to go big. And so, but it was really heart led and heartful. And I think that's part of our success and kind of still continues to make us who we are today is just being a family led company and just being a sort of heart led company and really actually caring about healthcare professionals. To this day, I'm still in private practice. I've never left my practice. And, it's in the last decade, I've been asked probably, 1,000 times, like, why haven't you quit? And why don't you just work for your business? And, I've never done that because being a doctor is who I am and a part of who I am. And being of service to my patients is a big part of who I am as well. And I think that gives me that sort of extra, I don't know, that authenticity to say like I am still out there with you. I'm still a healthcare professional doing all the things that you're doing.
It's by choice. You don't have to. And a lot of people, when they do find a business that they could start up out of a service they're providing, often do hang up their coat, right? And enjoy that business. And so I think it's something to be said for you. You are a steward of medicine as well as business and a mother. And it's quite amazing what you've
Thank
been
you.
able to accomplish. And tell me about your family. I know you've got a lot going on business
Yeah.
wise and at the doctor's office, but you also have kids at home that you're raising. You have two
Yes,
kids?
I do. I have two kids. They're 14 and 16. They were babies when we started this process. You can go back on our website and see our original photo shoot. And, we had them little mini scrubs that we had made for them for our very first shoot. And, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. And, I think there's a lot of working women out there that can relate to the idea of like just sometimes not being enough. And you feel like you're not enough at JAANUU and you're not enough at the office and you're not enough as a wife and not enough as a mother and you're sort of all cylinders firing, but everyone's getting, 50% of you instead of 100% in one category. And that's something that I've grappled with. But where I've landed in this journey is they're watching everything. They are seeing everything. And they, I think that they have a lot of love and respect for what I do. I think that they also are big dreamers. My son wants to be an entrepreneur. My daughter, she's wanting to be in medicine right now, which, again, we'll see. But, um, she's like, I could start a business too. Like, I could be like mom and I could, go into medicine and have a business. And the fact that they're dreaming so big and the idea that they think the world is their oyster and that they've seen us accomplish what we have makes me really proud. And, I do tell a lot of working women there's something about working that makes me very, very present at home when I'm at home. And when I'm at work, I'm very present at work. And when I'm with my husband and we're on date night, I'm very present as a wife. And I don't I have the ability to sort of turn off certain parts of my brain when I'm in certain circumstances, and I think that's one of my strengths, that, like, when my daughter's a thespian, so when she's at theater, it's like, I am a theater mom, and I am there to cheer my daughter on, and my son's plays basketball, so it's like, I'm a basketball mom, and then when I'm at the office, I'm a doctor, and, I think that there's something very beautiful about having be defined by a lot of different aspects of your life instead of just one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the struggle is real, as you say, trying to balance it all, but being able to segment out each part of your life and focus and provide that kind of attention is it takes dedication, but it is doable. And I imagine you're setting a great example for your children in all that you do, really. Is there something that you hope that they learn specifically from you as a doctor or you as an entrepreneur and carry on in their own lives?
I think facing adversity, I think that's just a big part of it. It's not always been easy. And, a lot of times when I do these interviews, sometimes we don't go to the nitty gritty of like, it's been hard. and we've had a lot of trial and errors, and we've had to go through a big journey to get to here, and we're still on a journey. Um, and life's not always been easy. And I haven't always been surrounded by, the most loving, perfect women, and I have not always had people that are like, rah, 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 go Dr. Neela.
Mhm.
Um, and, that's going to happen. And what I pride myself on now is finding those quality people that are going to support you in your journey. And so I really try to teach them that of like, find your people, love them hard, and you're going to know, and trust your gut instinct, and have the ability to pivot very quickly if something's not right or doesn't feel right. Like, we've tried designs that have flopped, right? We've had colors that we thought would kill it that didn't resonate. I could go through, an hour's worth of where we have, sort of not hit it. But in that has been growth and learning, and I want them to know that it's not going to always go as planned, and it's not going to be perfect, and you're going to fail, and sometimes sales are going to drop, and sometimes they're going to skyrocket. But guess what? Then you're going to create a top like this that goes totally viral, and that you can't even keep in stock because it resonates with some woman out there. And so for every loss, there is going to be a win, but it could be 30 losses for one win. And it could also be 30 wins for one loss. But I believe that the trough, and the trenches is where the growth comes. And it can be dark, and it can be lonely. And the life of an entrepreneur and a mom and a wife is not always, unicorns and rainbows. But I always tell them, when it hits so well. And like the joy that you get from seeing your product, or seeing your kids thrive, or having a really like glorious, date night, or having a really amazing girls weekend, and having a belly laugh with your girlfriend is so worth it, because it's real and authentic, and because you have experienced the darkness, that when the light is there, you don't take it for granted. And I think that's a big part of just the journey for a lot of young healthcare professionals, and just the younger generation in general, is just like, you got to go through the dark to get to the light. So don't fight the dark, even though it's uncomfortable. Sit in it and be in it and live in it, because what's going to come out of it is going to be very authentic and real. And that's what life's about: authenticity and real.
Right. Absolutely. Have you been pretty, I guess, have the kids been pretty involved with the business? Are you transparent with them about everything that's been going on, or have you been really separating that as the business grows?
I've been pretty transparent about our business. I mean, I think they love it. And, they're teens now, so they're on social media, and with restrictions and guidelines and, all the things. Being a pediatrician, I'm very strict. I pride myself on that. But, yeah, they've seen the business grow, and they've seen, me and my personal, account grow. And I think that there's a lot of excitement for that, and like, oh, look at mom and look at what she's doing. And I think that they have a lot of pride in that. And then, yeah, I do block them from some of the darker stuff, because I don't want them to, I don't think they need to know every last detail. But I will be honest with them when things are hard, or, when an employee leaves that we love, or when a design, because they'll see designs sort of be in their baby phase to the bigger phases, and say, like, you know what, this one just it didn't go. Um, and so I think that I've let them in on some, but not all, just I think as most parents do. And I think that I've had really allowed them to help me sort of celebrate my wins as well. And that's been a journey. It's initially, when this sort of went viral, it was like hard to accept the compliments for me sometimes. It's like, don't want to jinx it, can't, want to work harder, be in the grind. And there's been work for me to be like, no, you know what? Like, that is pretty incredible that, we started a business from scratch that went viral. It is pretty incredible that we started from nothing and came to something. And I want them to see that as well. And so to be able to celebrate those wins has been a big part of my journey as well.
It's been a great example for them of lessons that they can take with them. You mentioned your son wants to be an entrepreneur, and
Hmm.
there's no better way to learn than watching somebody go through those trials and tribulations and building a business.
Right. I mean, I joke with him all the time, like, you've seen it hard for mom too. It's not that easy to just like have a business that's successful. I mean, for every business, I don't even know the numbers, but I know that it's not great. And I know a lot of people who have, tried and not been as successful. So I'm very, very grateful. I'm grateful to our community. We call our like, our people, our army, and I'm just grateful for them. And I would say probably one of the most rewarding things about JAANUU and the evolution of JAANUU in general has been our healthcare professional network and being able to meet them and talk to them and have them tell us their storylines and how empowered they feel in our scrubs. That's really what keeps me going. That's like my why right there. I mean, yes, it's fashionable and yes, it's comfortable and yes, it's durable and all those things, but it's really about the person in the scrubs.
What do you think the most difficult thing has been in growing JAANUU?
I think pushing past the failures and not letting it define us as a company and as a group of people, because every company has ups and downs. I think that's been the most difficult part of like, how do people not see what we see? How is it possible? And what we keep saying is like, if they just tried them on, they would never go back. And that's actually something we found is just getting it into people's hands. And I think one, having people try something new, that's difficult, and two, having people find us on social media. And three, having them take the plunge to their first set. Um, and trusting, because there's just so much information being thrown at us right now in this modern world. And so it's like, oh, just another scrub brand. But, I mean it from our heart and soul that our scrubs are different, and I wholeheartedly believe that. So I think we're so confident in our product and we're so confident in our mission statement. Now we just need to sort of scream it from the rooftops and have a larger audience hear us and trust us and put it on, because all the messages we get from people are like, we are a huge fan. I wish I had tried it sooner. And we're like, we told you, you just have to try it. But, that's I think part of the journey as well, of just having faith and trust that like your moment will come and people will try it, but just getting our name out there in a broader way to a larger audience is, it's never easy. Never
Right,
easy.
right, absolutely. And just like in medical school, I'm sure there's been times where you thought, "Oh my gosh, are we going to be able to do this? Can it work?" Right?
Exactly,
Is there
exactly.
any time like that, and specifically, for the entrepreneurs out there listening, where you thought, "I've run into this roadblock, and I think I'm going to shut it down," but you were able to overcome it?
I remember pitching very early on the idea of like of skinnier scrubs for bottoms, and really for tops, but for bottoms. And when we launched, it was the era of the super skinny jean and the jegging, and that was something that just was unheard of in scrubs. Like you just didn't do that. And just even figure flattering or figure forming, and I'm not saying super tight, like, not classy, but just more figure, for like form to the figure. That was just sort of a novel concept. And I remember like sort of pitching that and saying, like, let's do skinny scrubs. Let's just do skinny bottoms. Everyone's in their jeggings anyway. Why wouldn't they want that for their actual scrubs if they're wearing those out? And being met with some early resistance of, oh, I don't know, it's pushing it too far, it's too strange, it's too different. And um that was a big early part of like, is this gonna work? Like, if you're not going to let me creatively express myself and to sort of trust my gut instinct, are we going to be able to make it? And thankfully, we had an incredible designer and I had an incredible team that was like, let's do it, let's try it. And, we went from that and they immediately did very well. And, then we were able to move into joggers, which was something that was really not done. And because people were wearing joggers. And since then, we've been able to do a lot of different things. Like we launched the first having print on the bottom because everybody was wearing skinny jeans with print. And I was like, let's put print on them. Like, let's have a plain top, but like a printed bottom. And so there's just a lot of those moments of really pushing it. Now, does it land every time? No. Sometimes my harebrained ideas, people are like, okay, it was a little too far, but hey, at least we tried it. So I think that's been one of our one of the bigger moments for me of like, if I can't creatively think outside the box and think of things that other people don't, like, I'm not sure if this is for me. And I'm really grateful that over the last 10 years, they're like, okay, Dr. Neela, give it to us. What do you want to see? Like, you know, so.
Yeah. Have there been any business mentors that you've had over the years?
I've had a lot of business mentors that have sort of pushed me. I mean, I have like the muses of the Jessica Albas and out there, and a lot of the momtrepreneurs that I've looked at, like, and seen them grow their company and thought, God, this is just so amazing. The Jen Myers, and I could go on and on with the list, the women that I love, that I follow, that I see with their family, that have grown their business and been very successful. Um, I've also been lucky to have a lot of amazing people work for our company. Our CEO right now, Mike, is, I think, a mentor and a friend, and someone that I really look up to, and the way that he has sort of changed our business structure to be so heart led, and to just be the kind of, like, he has his office desk in the middle of our workspace. And he is just like a man for the people. And even though he is CEO, he has just shown what it's like to just be in the trenches with your team. And he's a true leader and someone I truly look up to. And so it's just been a lot of those types of moments of having people that have come in and out of my life through the company and through our network, that I look at and say, you're not going to go viral in the first year. You know what I mean? And you may not even go viral at the 10th year, and you may never even do it, but are you fulfilled? Are you following your purpose? And is the reason that you're in it less financial and more to help and to be of service? And if so, it's going to work itself out. It just is. Good things do happen to good people. It's just true.
It is.
It's just a karmic cycle, right? Like, you can't just you can't be a good person and over again and not have the universe like bless you in some way, you
Right.
know?
Right. Would you say that you use the same skill set in medicine? I mean, obviously not specific to biology, but the same skill set for medical practice that you would in a business like JAANUU.
I think so. I think, things like, learning when to turn it off, right? And learning to be like, okay, the day is done. And my mom would say that, like, today is done, like, in that respect. Like, the practice is closed, I'm not on call. I did my best today. And me hyperfixating and focusing on a patient is not going to service me at this moment because I don't have control. I need to wait for labs. I need to see how they do overnight. And me, sort of focused on that is not going to, it's going to take me away from my husband and my children. Same with, the ebb and flow with a business, right? Like, you're going to have really great sales days and then you're going to have some slower sales days, but you can't let the slower sales days define you as a company. Like, who knows why? There are so many reasons why, because for every, poor sales day, we'll hit it through the roof and, hit all our goals times, X amount. And so I think being able to really sort of turn it off has been a big part of my growth. And I have to do that at the office as well. I think people pleasing too is a big sort of part of my journey of turning that off, and really not worrying if I'm going to disappoint somebody. And that's been hard because I've traditionally been someone that really wants to be liked by everyone and wants to be viewed a certain way. And, I'm a pediatrician, and I'm a mom, I'm a lover, I'm not a fighter. I give a lot of positive energy, but that doesn't mean it's going to resonate with everybody. And really having to sort of set boundaries and be like, okay, I'm not going to win over an entire audience all the time. I'm not going to be able to win over all of social media. I'm not going to be able to win over an entire large group practice. I'm not going to be able to win over an entire scrub community and healthcare professional community. And that's okay. I have to have confidence in myself and who I am and what defines me, and know that today is, I'm doing my best. And if that resonates with people, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I get that. Totally get that. But when I was in my 20s and my 30s, I don't know that I really felt that. I felt like, no, 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 I can do more. I can win them over. I can try harder. And it's like, no, sometimes you just got to call it and be like, not for me. And that's okay.
Right. And I think that's something that you grow into as you mature and get older, right? That
Yes.
not
Yes.
everyone is for everyone. Right?
No, no.
Right?
And, I think what the universe removes sometimes just allows for other relationships and other opportunities too. To
Mhm.
say, like, okay, maybe, there's no room for this person right now in my storyline, but then that opens up this creative space or this energy for other people as well. And there's who knows what's at the other corner and who you're meant to meet. And so I think that's another actually great point of like, I traditionally in the early part of my career was a clencher. It's like I need to hang on to, this storyline and this friendship and this design and this color and this diagnosis and, this patient. And it's like people feel that energy and they don't like that. And so having a really open palm and this sort of surrendering kind of mantra of like, release it,
Mhm.
just release it, let it go. Because if it's not meant for you, you clenching onto it's not going to make them stay, or it's not going to make the design, be worthy of sales, or it's not going to change the outcome. Actually, what's going to change the outcome is just releasing it and letting it go and just saying like, what did we learn from that experience?
Right. Yep, exactly. And that happens in business and life and our legacy. And when we think about what we leave behind and what people remember, I'd love to hear from you what you hope in 50 years when someone's telling your story, what they say about you.
I think, what I hope and pray is that they say that she, was an innovator and that she was creative and that she thought outside the box and that she tried something new. I really want them to believe that, I was very heart led and that what I did was to help people and that in every aspect of my life there was a service oriented sort of underlying tone to it, whether it be medicine or JAANUU or friendships or family. That my overall mission was to try and make the world better and to try and you know give people positivity. I'd like to believe that people will look back and say that she made mistakes, but she grew from them, and that she didn't let them define her, and that she was tenacious, and that she had roadblocks, but she was able to get back up on the horse over and over again, and that they themselves wouldn't judge their failures, but say, okay, I can learn from this and grow from this, and that there's better for me on the other side. Um, I, I hope that they feel my sort of tribal energy and the fact that I love very, very hard and that I'm fiercely loyal and that the people that I have in my inner circle know that I love them and know exactly how I feel about them because I tell them that and I act on it. Um, I'd like to have them believe that I was very fearless and that I didn't let fear guide me and I didn't let negative self talk guide me, but that I pushed through and continued to redefine and pivot and grow from each experience. And, I think last and final that they would, remember my warm, sort of cozy energy and, remember me as like, gosh, I just love being around her because she's just kind and sweet and warm. And that's something that the world needs more of.
That's beautiful. And I think people could already say that today about you from what I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Is there anything that you would hope that when people are telling your stories that they leave out?
Um, it's funny. I think a previous version of me would stare at the camera and say, "Absolutely, let me give you five." And I think and I'm actually like feeling a little like emotional about it because, the truth of it is no. Tell my whole story. Like tell them when I didn't, you know, make the perfect choice. Tell them when they went low that I went low, and that's just human nature, right? Like I would love to look at the camera and be like, when they go low, we go high. But you know what? Sometimes, they go low and we go low, and you learn, and you're like, and then you're like, oh, I don't like that, and I'm not going to do that again. But um, I think that every, sort of down moment and every sort of darker corner has led me to who I am today and has made me stronger and independent and wise and grounded. And I've redefined, who I am many times. And I think that's just part of what makes me like a beautiful kind of soul, in that I'm not I'm not hiding in the corners, and there's no Pandora's box, and there's no, like, I've sort of uncovered and unraveled all the different aspects of my life, and that I'm proud of that. I'm not proud of every moment, but I'm proud of that. And overall, I'm very proud of what we've created, and um advocating for every healthcare professional out there. And I'm proud of my kids, and I'm proud of my husband, and I'm proud of my family life, and I'm proud of my practice. And I can go to bed at night knowing that I put forth 150% effort in all those things.
I think many people have a younger version of themselves that may have been embarrassed or afraid to admit mistakes or things that they've done in the past. And I think the older we get, the more we want to own it all and share it,
Yeah.
set
Yeah.
examples and teach. And I love that. That's beautiful. Okay, so Heirloom Conversations, the reason we exist is to tell stories about people like you who are leaving great things behind for future generations. Because I believe that heirlooms aren't just objects that we pass on, but they're values and stories and examples. What do you think is your biggest heirloom that you'll pass on?
Um, gosh, I would say kindness wins. The good guy wins. Like, I get emotional thinking, like, what you give will come back. Um, karma's real. And when you do good things happen. And just continue to continue to give that. Like, love really is what we all want, and what we all strive for, and what we all crave. And if we can operate at that frequency of just kindness and generosity and compassion and curiosity and love, it's just going to work out. It's just it's just sort of the natural way of the world. And so the more that we can always kind of get back to that, of like, how can I choose to be kind in this situation? How can I choose love? How can I choose empathy? How can I listen to people's storylines? How can I be curious about their why, even if it's not something I would do, but I can be curious as to why they did it that way. I think it's going to lead to the right conversations and lead you to the right rooms. And I think that the outcome is generally going to be very positive.
That is a great thing to pass on and leave behind. And I'm sure that you are spreading that throughout the many things that you are doing. Um, Thank you so much, Dr. Neela. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would want people to know about you?
No, I think we did a really good job. I mean, obviously, I would really love for every healthcare professional out there and everybody that wears scrubs to try a set, and to feel good in them, and to feel our heart and soul that we put into it, and to spread the message. And I would just like to, you know, remind every, younger sort of healthcare professional or young mom or young entrepreneur out there to like keep pushing and keep grinding, and in the same time, don't lose yourself, because you just never know. And it does take one viral moment to put you on the radar of the universe. And it's very well worth it when that happens.